We will now call to order the February 23rd Board of Education special meeting. The Open Meetings Act legislates the methods by which public meetings are conducted. Information pertaining to this act is available on the board clerk table by Sheila. Sheila, can we please get roll call?
Mitch Wagner.
Here.
Angela Blasey. Emily Garrick.
Present.
Cindy O'Connor.
Present.
Skip Baltic.
Present.
Joanne Lindgren. Present.
Okay. And I would entertain a motion if anyone would wish to make one to excuse Ms. Blasey from the meeting.
I'll make a motion to excuse Angela Blasey from our special meeting.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Sheila, please.
Emily Garrick.
Aye.
Cindy O'Connor.
Aye.
Skip Baltic.
Aye.
Joanne Lindgren.
Aye.
Mitch Wagner.
Okay. We'll start this meeting off with our mission statement tonight. North Platte Public Schools is a destination school district and community that embraces innovative opportunities and distinguished programs to create highly competitive advantages for all students, instilling the canteen spirit in an evolving world. The canteen spirit embodies generosity, selflessness, and unwavering support through service, pride, collaboration, and grit. Okay, at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the publication for, that is the incorrect date, the February 23rd Board of Education special meeting. Do I have a motion?
I motion to approve the publication for the February 23rd, 2026 Board of the Education special meeting.
Second.
All right.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Emily Garrick.
Aye.
Cindy O'Connor.
Aye.
Skip Baltic.
Aye.
Joanne Lindgren.
Aye.
Mitch Wagner.
Okay, motion passes. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda for this February 23rd, 2026 Board of Education special meeting.
I move to approve the agenda of the February 23rd, 2026 special meeting.
I second.
Roll call, please.
Cindy O'Connor.
Aye.
Skip Baltic.
Aye.
Joanne Lindgren.
Aye.
Mitch Wagner.
Aye.
Emily Garrick.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay, at this time, we will open up for public comment specific to this meeting. We will have another public comment at our regular committee of the whole meeting at 5:30. So public questions and comments may take place at this time in the agenda. Individuals who want to address the board must complete a guidelines for public comments form with the date, topic addressing, name, address, and the name of any organization you represent, and give it to the board clerk prior to the meeting. Sheila, do you have
I have none.
Okay, we will go ahead and move on to our one agenda item then for this special meeting. So we are going to welcome Sherry here from NASB, and we're going to have a discussion of our interim superintendent search process.
Right, well, get my things together here. I'm actually just going to stand over here if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel a little better in my teacher mode up here. So first of all, I want to thank you for engaging NASB in the process and for allowing us to facilitate this really important work for your board and your district. So I have some things on my list for tonight that I think will get us done a few minutes before your other meetings at 5:30, right, Emily? Okay. So I think it's important that we talk about what the process will look like for an interim search. So you already have your interim in place for the rest of this school year, but this interim search that we'd be doing in the next month, I would say the next few weeks, will be for next school year. And we do have some people who have expressed interest already, have some resumes. We'll want to pick a date that we can come back and look at those resumes and decide who you would like to interview for that interim position. And so we'll need 2 dates by the end of this meeting. One will be the next time that I'll come out and review resumes, and then the next date would be interviews. And so I think it's really important that we get that timeline adjusted this evening. And then we're also going to talk just a little bit about what that interview schedule might look like. Typically for an interim process, it's not as quite as big of a process as your permanent search will be. So we'll talk about that. I want to talk a little bit about compensation and contract, because the contract is different for an interim, usually just being a 1 year. So we'll talk a little bit about getting an interim contract from your school attorney and make sure that we've got that going. I do have salary survey documents with me for all the board members. And then, of course, interview questions for the interim process. I've got some samples with me of that as well. And then the first thing we're going to start with is priorities. What is the board looking for? What would you like to see this interim superintendent carrying on with during your next school year and moving forward? And what kinds of things would you like them to do? Sometimes, you'll probably have people that are interested in this that would be more of an internal candidate. You will have some that would be more of an external candidate. You may want them to carry out some tasks that might be difficult for your permanent person to do, or you might just want them to stay the course and move forward some objectives that you already have in the works. So I have already talked to Angela because she knew she was going to be gone tonight, so she called me and let me know a few things that she had on her mind, which I'm sure are probably pretty similar to what you all will have to say, but I would just like to give you the opportunity to share, each of you, if you will, what you believe priorities are, or if you've identified some as a board that might be important for these people that I'm speaking with that are interested in the position to take into consideration if they're thinking about moving forward with the position. So who would like to give me any of their thoughts on that? Prioritized, or do you have something formalized priority-wise? Would you like to speak first, Madam President?
Sure. We don't have anything formalized yet, just because we knew you were coming and we knew this conversation would happen, and felt like it would be best to do it, all of us here in the open with you.
Perfect.
So I would say for me, and in just the role that I've been in through some of these transitions over the last few months, I would say really a top priority for me is a person of integrity. I think that that's going to be huge, and I think that should always be huge in this type of search, but it's definitely worth mentioning. That one is really big, and then I think a willingness to work with a board. I think that we probably all recognize this isn't the type of board that's going to kind of check out and just show up for meetings and not be engaged. Like, this is a board that has questions and wants to be actively involved in the process, and for somebody to recognize that that's a collaborative relationship and that it's not a us versus them type of a relationship.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Mitch?
I'd prefer to have somebody that I guess can buy into the direction that we're headed, kind of hold steady, because I think things are moving in the right direction, with some obvious exceptions, but that would be important. And then somebody that kind of understands North Platte's way of taking care of our own children, so it's more localized.
Okay.
And we do have a very robust strategic plan, just to kind of add on to what Mitch just said in the direction we're headed. I
Yeah.
think.
I was going to follow up with what
Yeah.
direction are you headed?
Yes.
But okay. Yeah, and I knew you had a strat plan, so
That this is the first year of that plan.
okay.
And I'm going
So has much been done on it yet?
to, no, other than implementation and starting to see how things fit, and that's where I was going to go.
Yep.
To make sure that we, since we are implementing this, that the person buys into that strategic plan and will help us continue to develop, and along with what Mitch had to say, keep us down the path that we have been going, because, our scores have improved, that type of thing, to make sure that we continue to, and I'll call it grow, in those areas, and keeps that so it continues to go that way.
Okay. Anything else, Skip?
Not
Okay.
right now, but I
All right.
might, depending on what else
You
is
may
said.
chime in. That's okay. Anybody's welcome to speak anytime. So, okay. Either of you ladies have anything you'd like to share, Joanne?
Yeah, so I'm going to disagree just a little bit with one of the things Skip said. I think that we are, even though we haven't done necessarily a lot with the strategic plan, a lot has been done with the strategic plan. And I think one of the things that is really important, we've really been been able to develop a collaborative atmosphere within teachers in the buildings and at the district administrative board level. I think there's been a lot of work done there that needs to continue. The buildings all have individual site plans, and they have been able to work together to set goals towards those site plans, and I think it's important that they're able to continue to work on the vision that they've created there. I also think that it needs to be a person who can work, maybe a little bit, as Emily said, work with the board. There's obviously going to be some change because Cindy and I have not refiled to run in this election cycle, and so come January there will be at least 2 new board members, and then Emily would be the other one who is in a contested race at the moment. So there is a possibility for some changes. I know at the high school level, there is at least, well, there's our AD will be new coming into his role, and then we also have an assistant principal position that just opened up recently. And so I think being able to work with people in those capacities. We also have Ms. Carlson, who is one of our directors of teaching and learning, who has resigned from her position for this next school year. So there's going to be some new things that whoever we have in that interim position, that they're going to be able to need to know how to do that. I also think, kind of along the lines of what Mitch said with knowing North Platte, is we really need to know our school district and know that we're not like a Hershey and a Brady and a Maxwell, but that we're, even though we're surrounded by smaller districts, we are a bigger school district, and that comes with some of its own unique challenges.
Yep. All right. And I appreciate you mentioning that about the new board members coming on, because that'll be good for, maybe for an interim to, be here during that transition and then starting fresh with your new hire with the board that's been in place for 6-7 months. So that'd be good. However, it might be a little bit of a challenge when we do the permanent search process, because what will happen, and obviously we go through this every other year in the search world, but it'll be really important to determine that timeline. Do you want to move forward and hire with the current board in place, and or wait until January when the new board's in place? And you do? Okay.
Oh, yes,
Well,
I did.
I'm going to tell you what I would recommend, and then you can tell me what you think, because it's probably about the same thing that I try to say as well. But if you decide you want to move forward in December and try and hire prior to your new board coming on, whomever is going to be on your board in January, you'll already know that, and they need to be engaged in the process. They need to be involved, because the last thing you want to do is have a new board start in January that doesn't support the hire that you just put all that work into. So great minds think alike, Skip? Maybe? Yeah. So I think it's really important that you engage them somehow, and or you wait. That, and it just might depend upon the timing and other searches going on, or where you want to be. Typically, this size of district, it's been better to wait over Christmas break and try and do those interviews at the beginning of January. We did that with the bigger district this year. I felt like we didn't get any more than we would have if we would have gone in December, but every year is different, and there's no way to guarantee that. But since people know so far in advance, you might be in a position where you could try and get done in December, just so that it's done. And like I said, then you would maybe include those folks either on a community interview team or as part of the board process, not sitting and interviewing the candidates, but in the room, present for the conversations and witnessing the interviews so they support you.
Joanne actually was part of that.
With Ron.
With Dr. Hanson.
Oh, sure.
She had been elected, and so so that board at that time, I wasn't on it, allowed her to sit in on those.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I ran unopposed, so I was actually able to sit in
Oh,
pretty
good.
early on
Yeah.
in the conversation.
Sure.
And then we didn't do the hiring until actually January. Did
Yeah.
the interviews and
Okay.
hiring, but then, yeah, I was able to sit in.
Yeah, and it'll be important, no matter whether or not you have people running unopposed like you were at that time, you can still invite them, even if there's 3 people running for your seat. You can invite them and say, hey, you know, if you get on the board, it's going to be really important that you're engaged in this. And so they might want to come to those planning meetings and just watch what's going on anyway. But we'll cross that bridge, but that's just kind of what, and anything else, Skip, that you would add on that
No,
part?
just
Yeah.
the fact that we know 2 could be 3, we just have to know.
Yeah,
And so.
it's a big deal.
Yeah, I thought about that,
Mhm.
the last week or so about that.
Yeah.
That, in my mind, I wouldn't want to be hired by a group, a half of them.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. And, you know, I just think it's really important that they be involved
Right.
in the process, and so.
So, you know, that,
Yeah.
not for the interim, but it's for the next one. which is
Exactly.
a good thing, because we do have to think about that.
We do. And I think it'll be important that once, I haven't actually looked at that January calendar yet, but we can see what day the first Thursday after the first whatever it is, so that we know, okay, at this point, the new board will be in place. Sometimes it's a little earlier in January, and sometimes it tends to fall a little bit later, so we'll be sure that we look at all that. Cindy, do you have anything that you'd like to share as far as priorities or?
I'll tell you, the 4 of them did a great job.
Okay,
Everything that they said, that's how I feel.
kind of on the same page then.
Yep.
Okay, that's great. And so what we'll do is anybody that applies for the interim position, we usually just collect a resume. Sometimes they have a letter of application, and then we will make, you know, a few reference calls. It's not as extensive as our normal application process where they're submitting an application and all this other stuff. We can still do the background check piece through OneSource background if that's something that's necessary. We can certainly do that piece of it, but we just don't have them jump through quite so many hoops. Oftentimes we've got some retired superintendents that are interested in. First of all, they don't like quite as many hoops, but they just, you know, they bring with them that experience and qualification that we already are aware of. And so we will make reference calls. I have one of my screeners doing some reference calls now on somebody that put in for another job, interim job we're doing too. So anyway, so, and everybody feel like your needs are represented by everything that we just talked about? Anything else you would throw in?
I would maybe just add, because I think that sometimes there's kind of 2 different directions that an interim can kind of go, and one is to keep furthering things and maybe even be willing to do things that a long-term would not do, and then there's sometimes an interim that's very much like keep everything steady, don't make any changes, don't, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
just kind of just
A placeholder.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think we want or need a placeholder.
Okay.
And I think that's probably important to say. I think there are times that that's appropriate in a district, but I feel like where we are with some of the change that's happening, with the growth, with our strategic plan, just with a lot of things that happen, like I think that we need somebody that is motivated to want to be part of that has a backbone when necessary, that is fair, that's driven, and isn't just filling the job for a year.
I guess another thing I might add is, depending on some of our conversations that we'll be having upcoming concerning our budget
Mhm.
and some of the forecasts next year, it may need to be someone who can even make some difficult decisions as far as the budget goes. And not be afraid of being able to stand in front of the public and say, these are some of the things that we're going to be doing.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I think it would be important that their visions align with ours as opposed to having to replace somebody's vision, which ideally,
Yeah.
and I'd have to buy a whole new thought process.
I was going to just share with you, I don't think that Angela would mind me sharing what she had to say, in all fairness. So, somebody who values the culture and building the culture, and then someone who's able to have hard conversations and handle that, and then someone who understands that you're working with the board, and it's a big position. And so somebody who will work in collaboration with the board, but also understanding the board is, the board. So those are the things that she mentioned. So didn't think she'd mind if I brought those up as well. Okay, well, I think that gives me a really good idea of, some of the things that I can pass along to those people, like I said, that are interested. So as far as timeline goes, I have an ad out on Teach in Nebraska, and of course I have it on our website as well. And so as I look at, I'm going to grab my calendar. We can just talk about timeline here real quick. I understand you have another meeting coming up in 2 weeks, and I think it would be probably advantageous for you all if we could try and coordinate with dates that you already have meetings as much as possible. And so I would suggest maybe that we bring you, wrong year, hang on a second. So today, February 23rd, you have another meeting coming up on March 9th, is that right?
Yes.
And so that's
That's a
your
regular
regular board meeting. And what time does that start?
5:30.
Okay. All right. And so I'm wondering if you would like to do something like this where we meet ahead of time again. We could probably do it on your regular meeting agenda.
I won't be in town until 5 o'clock then.
Okay. So we might just have to do it. Would you be opposed to doing it as part of your regular meeting agenda? Or would you prefer to pick a different date?
I think that's probably fine. Do you know, Dr. McDonald, off the top of your head? I know we've talked about some things that'll be on that agenda. Do you anticipate there being a lot of reports from other individuals that may have to sit and wait or those kinds of things?
I don't anticipate.
Okay. That would be my only thought, is sometimes at our regular meetings, we recognize our
Right.
teachers that get employees of the month and our students that get
Sure.
Bulldogs of the month, and there's a lot of people usually waiting to get up and leave after that part happens. So
Well, and that's okay because I could be at any point on the agenda. I mean, I
Okay.
don't have to be right away. So you can certainly get those folks in and out of there.
Okay.
Parents will come watch their kiddos do the presentation, and if they want to leave or whatever,
Right.
that's fine.
Okay.
But it might be easier than doing a separate meeting because I don't anticipate it will take a very long time. I will bring to you all of the resumes of the individuals that are interested in the position, and we'll be reviewing those most likely in executive session, at least for a short amount of that time.
How many any idea how many of those you would expect?
I have 5 right now. And so I would anticipate that you probably won't have, for maybe 8. I don't anticipate we'll get a whole lot more. It's been out there already for a week or two whenever you contacted me. But putting a deadline on it sometimes then pushes those people that haven't yet submitted it to say, oh gosh, okay, there's a deadline now, I got to get that in. And so, typically for interims, you only will interview, 2 or 3, but maybe you will want to interview 4. We'll just see what you think of the options that you have. Once we get to that point. But like I said, I don't know that it will take a whole lot of time out of that meeting.
Okay.
You can put me at the end, honestly, if you want to. And
we won't do that to
yeah,
you.
it's fine. But it could take, the other things that we would just need to finalize would be where do we end up on the interview questions and, with who's going to help the process. Those are really the only things that we would need to talk about besides the resume. So maybe 45 minutes. Maybe we could get it done in 30. Last time when we did the full search, the permanent search, we had a committee that did the interview questions and talked about who would be involved in the process. But I feel like maybe you might all want to have some input in that, just given that you're, doing your committee meetings by committee of the whole now. So Anyway, so if it would work, we'll do it on the 9th. Does that sound like the best idea, or don't want you to have to come up with another night unless you want?
We've only had 6 meetings.
I know, that's why I'm
We have
saying,
a lot of special meetings. I think that
if you'd rather
is
just
very
devote a little
appropriate.
extra time to that meeting, then you wouldn't have to schedule a whole nother day.
Yeah, I think that that's just fine.
Okay, all right. And then as far as setting up a date possibly for interviews, I would suggest that we try and do it maybe the following week. Later that week it's state basketball, boys basketball, you don't want to do it then. And that's kind of rushed anyway. But if I could have a couple of options, I can circle up with the people that have already expressed an interest and just make sure they're all available on one of those dates. So
The only
that,
day that would work that week for me is Monday.
okay. I was hoping you weren't going to say St. Patrick's Day.
No.
Not that I'm a big green beer person, but you know.
That is district speech week. I
Okay,
have 4
so March 16th might be an option. What does everybody else have on March 16th?
That would be my last choice for that week,
Okay.
but I will make it work
Okay.
for the good of the cause.
And so,
I just might be a little sleep deprived because I'll be driving 10 hours home the
oh
night
gosh,
before, so.
okay. And we, we would probably start, I would assume, maybe in the afternoon. It just depends on how many people you're interviewing, I guess. But what about others? Is the 16th a date that you could make work?
That won't work for me.
It won't
'cause,
work for you.
I have to be in Lincoln and then come back that night.
Okay. So that puts us into the next week, and I suppose you probably have another meeting on March 23rd, or do you normally do them on Thursday?
No, we do them on Thursday.
Okay,
We have a meeting on the 26th, that's our committee meeting.
okay. What about the 23rd?
That would work for me.
And I have state speech on my calendar for the 25th. I must have
It's
that
the
wrong.
27th and 28th, actually.
Okay.
It's 2 days.
So the week of the
There's
16th.
a conflict with FFA state. So
Okay.
instead of 3 days, it's 2 days.
So
Instead of
district speech
Wednesday,
is the
Thursday,
week of the
Friday,
16th.
Friday, Saturday.
So district speech is the week of the 16th?
The district is the
Gotcha.
week.
So what about the 23rd?
It's fine with me.
I will not be here.
Huh?
I won't be here.
I'm telling you, this is always the worst part of any search process, so it's
Well, at
okay.
least-
What
doing
about,
it
what's like the 24th look like that week?
24th, I can do, but 23rd,
Okay.
sorry.
That works for me. I don't have.
Are you going to be here, Sheila? You probably have Nate. Can somebody else fill your shoes?
I'm likely not going to Nate.
You're not going to Nate, okay.
24th?
24th, is that a date that works?
Yep.
All right, look at that.
Okay. We're going to circle it for now, and I'm hoping that other individuals that are potentially involved in this process would be available. So if for some reason they're not, I will circle back, and you guys can talk about it at your next meeting. We can talk about it at our next meeting on the 9th and see if we can figure it out. By then you'll know too who you're picking to interview and whether or not it matters if they're available that day. So, okay, so let's pencil the 24th and go from there. Now, my next difficult question for you, just checking my time here, I want to go over, for time's sake.
You're good.
Is it 5? Oh, just 5, perfect. Typically for an interim process, we don't involve, teachers and go too far out. But you might want to have some kind of an admin team, maybe a few principals, maybe some people at your district office, maybe Sheila, who works with your superintendent every day. Do you have some thoughts on that? I mean, usually it's just a team and then the board. We also could do some kind of a little bit of a facilities tour if time would allow. Let's say if you interview 3 people, you could have a tour with one group or with one time slot. One person's with the board and one person's with this other team. And then you just switch them around. And obviously if you have an internal that would be interviewing for that position, they might not need the tour, but we would worry about that later. So what would be your thoughts on involving some other
It's a good idea.
parties in
Yeah.
this?
Not a big group like us.
It's usually a small group, but that's hard when you have a lot of people on an admin/director team. And so, I don't know how you want to come up with that or determine that.
That's where things might get a little tricky.
Okay.
Just like full transparency, the culture of our district right now with everything that's happened with resignations.
Yep.
I think there's been a hard line drawn in the sand with some of our administrative staff. So
Okay.
I think having them involved is good. I do think that should be collaborative. But I am a little nervous about if there is a line that's drawn in the sand in this entire search process, whether or not that's helpful or harmful to the district moving forward.
Okay, that's fair. So just a little bit more background information for those of you who haven't done a search process before. Typically, we have some set questions that we would have provide for the teams, and they can pick from them what they would like to ask, but they have to get us the list of what they're asking. And then their responsibility to the process would be simply to list strengths and weaknesses for the board, and you are the ones that make the decision. We ask them not to rank or make a recommendation to the board. So I don't know if that's helpful or not helpful.
I think that's a really good practice.
But I
If
just
the
mean
board's
in-
still in those interviews and they're just making that list, or is that all the board's getting from the interviews? Like, not in the room and we're getting a list of strengths
You're
and
just getting a
weaknesses?
list of strengths and weaknesses, because there's no way that the board can be listening to their interview, and now I could bring somebody with me and have them in with the admin director team. That's, something that we do frequently. And so I could be positioned with the board, and we could have somebody else that is, just facilitating that part of it.
The board would still be interviewing, though, each person, just
Yep.
not in the same interview.
Right.
Okay.
So like I
Yeah,
said
that's
before,
fine.
we're kind of rotating. So
Okay.
the
So
board
each
would be with
group-
one candidate asking some questions. You'd have maybe another interview team that would be asking a different candidate questions, and you would flip-flop or switch, unless if you had more than two, and then we'd figure that out. But no, we would have them. They would be in a separate spot with a set of questions that they would be asking, and then providing that strength weakness feedback to the board. And again, I can have somebody come along and facilitate that team while I facilitate the board team. That would be up to you, but we can certainly do it that way if that would be helpful.
I think that would be great. I want to be really cognizant that the board is who employs the superintendent, so that's where that ultimate decision has to be made.
Absolutely.
And we absolutely respect and want to hear that input. I just want to make sure that it's
Yep.
that boundary is understood, that at the end of the day, it's the board that has to make that.
Right. And I would certainly hope that your administrators and directors would understand that while they might be more qualified to listen to a response about curriculum or, something that an administrator or director would do, that they're providing that feedback to you because that's more their wheelhouse, and that it's not, to say, we want this person. That's just.
This is
the
also
way it
very
goes.
similar to the process that we went through when we selected our last superintendent. But there were more groups. There was an admin group, there was actually a student group, there was a group
Teacher
of
group.
community.
And a director, yep.
Yep, and so,
Yeah.
so very similar, where they all had a chance to visit with the candidates and then just provided strengths and weaknesses, but no recommendations.
Yeah.
So very similar process.
And I think the reason I bring this up tonight is because it would be nice to know who you would like on the team, so that I can communicate with them prior to the 9th. So if I'm going to be here anyway, I could possibly meet with them for 15 minutes and give them some sample questions and just visit with them about their role in the process. But we wouldn't have to decide tonight. You could decide the 9th, because it's going to be now, instead of just 1 week to the interviews, we'll have 2 full weeks. So if you want to think about it, and we can circle back up at our next meeting and finalize who's going to be involved, and then I can reach out to them and just do a Zoom with them instead. that'll be perfectly fine. It's a very short meeting. That also might give you a couple more weeks to see if there are any more resignations, so you're not inviting people to participate that are no longer going to be employed here. And so if you want to wait, you can think about it, and I can get your suggestions at the next meeting.
That I think, for example, and obviously this will be something that the board would have to talk about, but even though we have received Ms. Carlson's resignation and accepted that, there are some people I think that just have some historical knowledge and some other things that I think could provide valuable feedback as far as strengths and weaknesses and you know, potentially how that person could work with the district even though they may not be employed here.
Yeah.
When that person is.
That is up to you as a board. I don't know who your key personnel are, and so I will defer to you to decide how you want to make that group up. I just don't know, you know, if there's a better way to do it. You know, if you do have some kind of a committee and you might want, everybody can give their suggestions to the committee and the committee can make the final decision, or if you want to do it, like I said, at our next work session, that's fine. Either way is going to work. Like I said, it's not going to be a big rush to the interview because we've got a couple weeks in there, so I'm happy to wait.
That's what I was gonna say, how many people do you think would be?
Well, I would say you're getting into like 8 people is getting to be a nice sized group. I don't want to limit you though, so I mean, it's just, if you're going to sit somebody down in front of 16 people, that's a lot of people, right? At that point, we just need to break it up into 2 groups, and then we'll have the board and 2 other groups. But I just have a feeling they're going to ask a lot of the same questions, and so if we can have, you know, closer to 8, that would be good. I don't know that we need it much bigger than that. I mean, there's only 6 of you, and so so anyway, I don't know if somehow we can, you know, if you have 3 principals or, you know, 4 representing each, I guess, age group, or how you would want to split it up. And then again, I don't know in your district directors too what you've all got there. And, you know, maybe you have a couple people that would lead the tour that would be on that kind of a team. Maybe they do the tour instead, and they have an opportunity to visit a little less formally with the candidates doing a tour. And if you do have somebody internally that interviews, they could still spend that time with them, even though they probably know the facilities. So that would be something we could do as well. So I think the best thing to do is to let this sit with you until our meeting on the 9th, and then we can make a decision on who you would like to have involved, and I can reach out to those folks and invite them and do, like I said, just a quick virtual meeting with them. By then we'll know how many you're interviewing, what time we're going to have to start based on how many you're interviewing, how involved it will be. Is it going to be a 2-hour process or a 4-hour process? So let's just wait. Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
Okay,
That's the right
let's plan
choice.
on that. Okay, let me look at my list here. Okay, I'm going to hand this out next. And this is, the top document you're going to see is a list of interim interview questions. And I've got a copy here for Angela that I'll leave as well. So this is usually for interims, you don't need 25 questions. You know, these are very appropriate for an interim process. I actually used some of the questions that they had in Blair this year. They just did an interim search there. And so I used some of the questions from that, but also tailored a couple of them a little bit more strategically to you. However, now that I have a little bit better idea what you're looking for, I would like to tailor some questions a little bit more towards that. So, for example, you're not going to see a question on here of that would be related to the strategic plan, I think it would be important to have a question for strategic plan on there. I'm going to leave that copy for Angela with you, but so I can write on mine. So I think that it would be important to have a strategic plan question on here. I think it will be important, so you can read through the questions. I think a lot of them are what we've talked about tonight or this afternoon. But also, some of those, preparing for reduced funding, that's something that Joanne just mentioned. So I think some of these are going to align nicely with what we talked about earlier. But what I plan to do is go back through, maybe build in a few questions that will relate a little more closely to what you're looking for. What I'd like each of you to do is just go through them, and if there's any that you feel strongly about, if you could just circle them. And then I'm going to give you my cell phone number. Just write it right on there, if you don't mind. I know some of you already have it, but my cell phone number is 402-416-4483. And what you could do is just put your name on it somewhere and then just text me a picture of the ones you circled. That way I can eliminate those that you're not interested in, take the ones you are interested in and either beef them up a little bit based on your priorities or add some more that would be a little more aligned with your priorities. I'll bring those back on the 23rd so that the board can look them over and say, these look good, or let's take this one off and add this. That will cut down a lion's share of the work for the meeting that's going to be on, the 9th, not the 23rd, the 9th. It is the 23rd now, apparently. So anyway, when I come back on the 9th, that way I'll have a better list for you, and we'll be able to reduce some rather quickly then. Sound good? Okay. And if you all want to take a shot at writing any that would be, based off of what we talked about, go right ahead. Send those to me too.
I think it's the 24th.
Right, but I mean the next meeting that I'm coming to
Oh.
present resumes is the 9th.
Yeah.
That's the one that will talk about this.
All right.
Yeah.
But
You're
we'll
right
have
though.
our list of questions decided on,
When I
when
come
we
back
wrap
on the
up that.
9th, you're going to have to decide, yes, this is good for our final list.
Okay.
And then when I come back for the interviews on the 24th of March, I will have the list of questions for the board, and I'll have some space in between each one so you can make some notes during the interview process. So I'll bring those along with me. But we want to finalize them at our next meeting, which is on the 9th. So.
Sounds good.
Okay, so that does it for that. Now, the other document you're going to see there is our superintendent salary survey. And you may have already seen this year, but this is a list of all of the superintendent salaries in Nebraska. Other than a few, I think there's maybe 10 at on the back page that did not get back to us with their information, but we went on and got their contract information off of the NDE transparency site, so we just might not have the enrollment quite right, but otherwise the other data is correct. So this is a great document to use when you're talking about what you're going to pay your interim. Usually it's whatever your superintendent's making right now because you've already got that budgeted in, especially if they've got superintendent experience. And so you will look at that and decide. You're not going to expect that interim to do anything less than what you would have expected your permanent superintendent to do. So, but we'll talk about that. I'm not the one who decides salary because luckily that's not my job. I just give you the information and I will answer any questions that you might have. Oftentimes, when you're hiring an interim, if it is somebody that's retired, they might not need all of the benefits that you have to offer. They might not need insurance. They might have that through some other opportunity that they have. So that would be something that we would talk about. And something you would have to ask your school attorney about if they would want to do some kind of a stipend. I don't know if you can do that. I would assume you probably can somehow give them a little bit of that insurance for, mileage, or just, they'll have to rent something if they're an interim that's not currently residing here. And so sometimes that, if instead of insurance, you might do something like that.
So is that something like salary, is that something we need to decide at the next meeting, or is that something that you, when you pick who your top candidate is,
You're
is part of
gonna
your
wait.
negotiations?
Yep.
Okay.
So it's not really, For the permanent process, they filled out our full application. We know what their current salary is. For interims, because they're just doing, a resume, letter of application type of a deal, we don't have that information necessarily unless they are a current superintendent or administrator. And then if they're retired, they probably don't have a superintendent salary. They might be doing something else to occupy their time. So I wouldn't know what they would be making, but it's important, I think, for that one that we wait until the end. And it's real possible, we'll work on the agenda and put that together, but we usually, you might have, this is our option one that we would like to try and offer to, and if for some reason they've changed their mind or said no, who's our option two? Because sometimes you need that, and sometimes they're very equal. Our 1 and 2 are very close. It's hard to decide between them. We would be happy with either. And so we'll talk about that once we get into that meeting on the 24th. When you're doing your interviews, at the end of that, we'll get together and you'll be deciding who to offer it to and what to offer. But this just gives you a good idea of,
This is actually really helpful because
Yeah.
we would be extremely high on this list.
Okay, yep, and that's fair, So that's good for me to know too, because then for people who are interested, for me to be able to say, well, they're probably a little high for their array right now. They still might come in and say, well, I'd still like that, and you may have to decide if that's what you're willing to do. Depends on how bad you want to hire someone or, a certain person. But anyway, so it's just informational more than anything. Okay, the last thing then that I want to mention, and then we'll get you done a few minutes early here so you have a chance to use the facilities and whatnot, contract. So an interim contract is typically different than a regular permanent contract. And so I would probably recommend your school attorney, is it KSB, that you reach out to whomever your contact is there. They've got one that is a template that they can email you, because it'll only be a 1-year contract. And there'll just be some different things in there that you won't see in a permanent contract. So I would suggest that you just, if you can get it before our meeting on the 9th, we can give a copy to everybody so that when we come back on the 24th for the interviews, they'll have had a chance to look it over and see if there's anything they have questions on as board members prior to offering it to someone. So that would be wonderful if you could get it before the 9th.
Yep, I just made a note of that. I will email Bobby in the morning.
Okay, so board district priorities, timeline, interview schedule questions, contract compensation information. That was everything that I had on my list.
Wow.
It was a lot, but we got it done, didn't we? Is there anything that I can answer for you all while I'm here? Anything that you have questions on? I know this is can be a nervous and anxious time, but I think things are looking good for you all, and keep moving forward. Nothing?
Just give us time to get through the questions and send you a text. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like I said, create your own if you want. I don't honestly need them until, the week before I come, because, it's not a rush.
Gotcha.
So, but I do want to bring them back finalized on the 9th, so maybe like the 6th, March, a week and a half if you get them to me. That'd be awesome. And you all have my cell phone number now, so feel free to call me and badger me if you have any questions or think of anything after this. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right. Well, that is all I have for you. So
Thank you, Sherry. We appreciate it.
very welcome.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the special meeting.
I move to adjourn the special meeting.
All right, Sheila?
Skip Baltic.
Aye.
Joanne Lingreen. Mitch Wagner.
Aye.
Emily Garrett.
Aye.
Cindy O'Connor.
Aye.